geometry of mercury telluride that I showed. And you see that when you are in the trivial band insulating phase, your conductance is very small in the unit of E square over H. But now, when you're in the topological phase, your conductivity becomes 2 E square over H. So this 2 is coming because of the two copies of the edge, up spin and down spin, and the So three momentum locked edge modes. As there are two edge modes, you're getting 2, but in the quantum Hall, you are getting only 1. So here, and if you increase the temperature of the sample due to thermal fluctuation, the response is quite robust, but there are small thermal fluctuations here, but it remains quite close to the your to quantized value. So these edge modes, the helical edge modes, actually corresponds to quantized conductance of 2 square over H that they showed in the experiment, and which clearly explains that in the experimental point of view, one can distinguish between the trivial and the topological phase in the mercury telluride. And also in three-dimensional case, they perform some angle-resolved photoemission spectroscopy, and they have shown the Dirac nature of the surface modes here. And so in this picture, you can see that here on the surfaces, your spin and momentum are actually locked. So you will get some spin texture here, because spin and momentum will follow in the Dirac cone, behave like this. And this spin texture also you can see in the planar picture in experiment. They also show this. In the Fermi surface, you have the spin momentum locked motion of the electron. So this is picture. So what we learned so far is that topological, so quantum Hall, one kind of topological insulator, time reversal symmetry broken, but there are time reversal invariant topological insulators. For example, mercury telluride or bismuth selenide. There actually I get boundary modes which are non-trivial, helical, and they are time reversal partner like Kramer space. And you have to define different topological invariant for the two cases. So far we discussed about insulators, but now if we ask the question that can we generalize this bulk boundary correspondence that I discussed in topological insulators in case of a superconductor. So the question. So before I go to the topological superconductor, let me just show you one slide of the what is a superconductor. This is for the students. That superconductors, our earlier speaker also gave you at the end some introduction, but here let me show you that a superconductor after a certain critical temperature, you can have a state in a system where in the superconductor the resistivity suddenly drops to 0, but from the microscopic point of view, in the superconducting state, what that is supercurrent is the Cooper pair. So Cooper pair is actually the 2 electron bound state at the Fermi surface, and this appears due to the electron-electron interaction mediated by the electron-phonon interaction in the system. And this kind of Cooper pairs actually can have different kind. So they can be like S wave. So K up and minus K down is like S wave. But also in the in the theory or in the reality, you can have other kind of pairing which are called P wave pairing. So in the P wave, your spin of the 2 electron bound state can be up or down, or it can be up plus down, like a triplet state in quantum mechanics. So this P wave pairing will be needed in our discussion. So it's a Cooper pair is a 2 electron bound state near the Fermi surface, and what happens in the spectrum of a superconductor is that at the Fermi energy you open up a gap, or the instability of the comes as a gap in the system, which is the superconducting gap. So you can see that now in a band insulator I have a gap structure, but the Bogoliubov-Dichin equation for a superconductor also solving that you will have a gap structure. So the question comes into the mind that, like an insulator, can I also have topological superconductor and get some more exotic phenomena? But to understand the exotic phenomena in topological insulators, we have to understand one more basics, which is called the Majorana fermion, because that is the meat in the story of topological superconductor, that one can have Majorana. So what is Majorana? So I have shown you the Dirac equation, and the solution of that Dirac equation actually gives you the complex solutions always. So, but Majorana asked questions here that in 1937, that can I have a clever representation of the Dirac equation? Of the clever representation means, can I have a representation of the Dirac matrices which only involve real numbers? And in that situation, what happens is that the Dirac matrices, they follows the usual anti-commutation relation, but what happens is that the Dirac matrices satisfy this condition, gamma is equal to gamma dagger. So which physically means that you have an electrically neutral particle which is of its own antiparticle. So for this Majorana or the Majorana fermions, your particle and antiparticle is same. So in particle physics, neutrinos was believed to be the Majoranas, but now we know that neutrino has mass, so there is no signature that one can say that neutrinos are Majorana. But people started asking the question, can I have the signature of these Majoranas in the solid state systems? And you can see I have given a lot of reviews where you can see the discussion of the development here. And topological insulators, topological superconductors, they actually play a crucial role to understand the emergence of Majorana in solid state systems. And the application of Majorana is that this is a very new, happening topic, is that so these Majoranas will follow non-abelian statistics. That means they are not like bosons, not like fermions, and they are objects, and they can be the building block of quantum computers. So there's a belief, and people are doing research in that. Anyway, I'm not the expert of particularly this field, but as an example, one can think about people are looking at this. But for us, the theoretical interest is that, can I realize Majorana in condensed matter systems, and what will be the signature of that? That one has to see in the experiment. So now, so then you ask the question that okay, I understand superconductor. Okay, I get about the picture of Majorana. So then why superconductor is important if we want to see Majorana? Then the question is that for a superconductor, if you, for a spinless or p-wave superconductor, chiral p-wave, if you write the Bogoliubov quasi-particle operator, you see that if you have a S-wave, then you will have the spin here. But if you have a spinless, or let's say both are same spin, so what this equation tells you, that the Bogoliubov quasi-particle you have written in terms of electron and a hole, and these are the amplitudes. But now, if it happens that suppose these amplitudes of electron holes, suppose they become equal, un is equal to v star. So then, due to particle hole symmetry present in a superconductor, at zero energy, this operator will satisfy this condition. So this is the condition that you get from the Majorana representation, but this same condition you can satisfy in case of p-wave superconductor, where at zero energy we have this gamma is equal to gamma dagger. That means particle and antiparticle are same in condensed matter point of view, and the particle is like a hole. So that means you can expect that I have a gap structure. That means I have an kind of insulator, and also in a p-wave gap, like the p-wave superconductor also have this gap. So within a p-wave gap, I can satisfy this Majorana fermion condition at zero energy, and then I should get a Majorana kind of mode at zero energy. So the outcome is that in case of superconductor in condensed matter, what happens is that within this p wave gap, you have a zero energy state. So like Majorana fermion in condensed matter is like a zero energy state here. This is the zero energy state. So it appears as a bound state in the system. And at the bound state, you satisfy this condition, gamma is equal to gamma net, Majorana condition. So in the three dimension, it will come as a bound state at the vertex core of the superconductor. But what I will discuss is the appearance of Majorana as a mid-gap state like this at the interface of or at 1D system. So let me skip that. What are the other systems where people have found Majorana? Let us come to a system where actually in 1D I can have this realization of Majorana. But anyway, take this model as a very, very theoretical model. In the next slide, I will show that how to realize that in a more practical situation. So this is called Kitaev chain. So what Kitaev did, he took a tight binding model. So you have a chemical potential, you have a hopping in the lattice, and you can see that you have a spinless superconducting pairing here. So you have like a p wave, so it's like a chiral p wave, like up, up, or down, or effectively spinless in that sense. So this model in 1D, and what he thinks that, okay, he go to a clever basis. So he write the fermionic operator at each lattice side as a superposition of two Majorana operators. So this is the representation, or this is the basis that he chosen. And sometimes actually it happens to a very handy basis. So now physically, if you see that at each lattice side, each fermion will have two Majoranas. So that means with the two Majorana, with the two Majorana operator, I can actually form a complex. I can form a complex fermion. So if you think about it, if you go to a phase where the hopping T is not equal to delta, in that phase, what happens is that at each lattice site, two Majorana forms an electron. So this is called a trivial phase. But now you go to another phase in this 1D model where the two Majoranas at the adjacent lattice sites form single electron, but there are two Majoranas that are left behind. So if you look at this Hamiltonian, actually in this basis you can diagonalize this Hamiltonian in the real space, and if you see this Hamiltonian, you can see that in this Hamiltonian the gamma 1 1 and the gamma n2 doesn't appear. So as if this two Majorana will form a non-local fermionic state, a non-local state, not fermionic. They will form a non-local state because they are sitting at the two end of the chain. So here one of them, the other one of them here. So this is a very non-local object. This is operator. So this is called the two unpaired Majorana at the two end of the chain. And as they don't appear in the Hamiltonian, you can think that these two, for example, as if they're at zero energy. So these two Majorana forms a non-local state at zero energy. And from the quantum computation view, these are important because in quantum computation, one want to intend to carry information non-locally. So that means if I have something at Calcutta and something at Delhi, for example, but still I want to transmit in a computer the signal. So these are, and so why topological? Let me come back in a minute. So these are very robust objects. So these are topological mode, neutral, Majorana mode. So these are actually non-local state that appears at zero energy. But this model in a realistic, there is no material, or there is no system where I can really engineer, or I can really see a material where I can have this model. But theorists and experimentalists, they try to engineer this model in a 1D system. So in a 1D system, simplest, what you can take? You can take a nanoware. It's a 1D object. So what is the theoretical proposal? And then I will show the experiment in a minute. So what people take? They take a single channel nanoware in this picture. And this nanoware, you choose a material in the nanoware where you have strong spin-orbit coupling. So this is Rajpal spin-orbit coupling. And also you apply a Zeeman field, but you apply the Zeeman field such that the spin-orbit direction and the Zeeman field should be perpendicular to each other. Now, the question is that this nanoware, okay, that I can choose, that I can apply magnetic field, I can take a material for nanoware with a strong spin-orbit coupling. But this nanoware is not superconducting by itself. So now how to bring superconductivity in this nanoware? So so even if this material is not superconductor, what you can do, you can place this nanoware in close proximity to a bulk S-wave superconductor. So then what will happen that due to proximity effect, and the mechanism is tunneling of Cooper pairs in the nanoware, what can happen, it depends also how the interface is, you can actually induce superconductivity in this nanoware. But if it is a S-wave superconductor, or S-wave pairing will be induced in the system.
Excuse me, Arijit, sorry.
Yeah.
So you just have 5 more minutes, is that fine?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you.
5 minutes is fine. Okay. Thank you. So from the band structure, if you look at that, in the spin orbit, in presence of spin orbit, the band, spin up band and spin down band are separated, the blue and the green, and the magnetic field opens up a gap at the k is equal to 0 here. And now, so if you increase the strength of the magnetic field, effectively the two spin bands are now separated. And if you choose your chemical potential such that here, so you can see that the chemical potential will encounter an effective p-wave pairing. So inducing S-wave actually and choosing the chemical potential properly, I can engineer a p-wave pairing in the system, and due to that, so that means like a Kitab chain here, and I can have this 2 Majorana mode. So from the wave function point of view, is a Majorana at these two ends, the Majorana wave function is actually localized. Localized means they have a small tail inside the nanoware. Obviously, if you take a very short nanoware, so this to tail can overlap, and then they will become a fermion. But you have to choose the length of the nanoware such that they are spatially separated. So this is the interesting point, that you can have a Majorana in this 1D system, and which exactly people have engineered in a real experiment. So these are 3 experiments I am showing. This is a very recent experiment. In the system, exactly what I showed you, they experimentally developed that, and they have shown that if you look at the tunneling conductance of this system, so they have chosen indium antimonide, which has strong spin orbit coupling, and as I have told, the Majorana appears at the 0 energy. So if you change the bias of your reservoir, so at 0 energy, due to Majorana bound state, you have a quantized conductance of 2 square over h. So here also in the 2D plot is the same. In the trivial regime, there is no signal. You change your magnetic field such that you enter in the topological regime, where it behaves like a K-type chain. I have a pairing and the Majorana signature coming out as this 2 square over h. So this is the indirect signature. So the zero bias peak can come from other reasons also, but at least they claim that bypassing the other reason, not bypassing, arguing the other reason is not possible in the experiment. This can be an indirect signature of the Majorana. And these experiments are done at very low temperature, like 20 millikelvin. So, okay. So, Satyaki, I think 2-3 minutes?
Yes, fine, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm at the end. So as an outlook, so I just want to show you that what I discussed so far is the topological insulator superconductors, which has one, from the bulk it's insulator, but the edges have 1D or 2D boundary modes. But you can have, like it's a new appearance in the field, you can have topological insulators, which are called higher order topological insulators, where you don't have your edge or the surface is actually gapped as well as the bulk, but you can have boundary modes at the hinges of the system or at the corners. So that means if your dimension of the system is D, and then you can have a topological insulator of nth order. That means in a two dimension, if n is 1 in two dimension, you get a usual topological insulator. But if n is 2 and d is 2, you get the zero mode or the zero dimensional mode, which are these are like corner modes. So these are called second order topological insulator. Similarly, in 3D, you can have choose n is equal to 2 and n is equal to 3. The correspondingly you will get hinge modes or corner mode, like second order 3D topological insulator, third order 3D topological insulator, and these are. But the bulk of these systems are very, very different, and one has to really characterize this system, but with very different mathematical prescriptions, etc. But these corner modes are also, again, like Majorana mode, they are very localized here. They cannot carry current. To see them, you really need an STM probe to see the signal of them. But the thing is that they, again, non-local objects and can be very useful in quantum computers, etc. But these are all under investigation at this moment, that how to characterize higher order topological insulator, how to realize higher order topological superconductor, what will happen, and a lot of this is a very new field, a very new area, very new field in this subfield of this topological insulator. So there's a lot of research work is going on. So at the end, so what is your take-home message? Is that topological insulators, so these are class of materials which are characterized by a bulk bandgap, like an ordinary insulator, and but they have conducting states at their d-1 boundary. So that means if I choose d is equal to 2, then I will have a 1D edge mode, and if I choose d is equal to 3, I have a 2D surface. So this boundary state emerges as a time reversal Cramer's pairs due to time reversal symmetry, which comes due to the presence of spin orbit coupling, which preserves time reversal symmetry, unlike magnetic field in the quantum Hall case. And one has to define different topological invariants for that. And also these boundary modes are insensitive to scattering by non-magnetic impurities. And experimentally, first the 2D topological insulator was realized in mercury telluride, and in 3D it was in bismuth selenide. So these are the basic take-home message. And then from the topological superconducting point of view, the more exotic part is that you can have the Majorana fermion that appears in case of a p-wave superconducting chain, and one can really design or engineer a p-wave pairing, effective p-wave pairing in a 1D spin orbit coupled nanowire with Zeeman field and proximity induced superconductivity. And this two non-local Majorana bound state, so it appears as a bound state in case of Punnett matter. They're protected by particle Hall symmetry, and they appear at the two ends of the nanowire. So effectively they form a very non-local state, which is protected by particle Hall symmetry and protected by the bulk superconducting gap. And from the experimental point of view, is zero bias peak, because they appear at zero energy. So the zero bias peak that appear in the tunneling conductance signal, that reveals the indirect experimental signature of Majorana bound state. Also, I am not saying that what I am showing is a smoking gun signal of Majorana, unless and until you show that the experimental evidence of non-abelian statistics or some other very concrete signature it's very hard to say that this is really Moirana. So the debate is going on, the research is going on. Mm. And at the end, I mean, if you want, so I have not discussed anything about my work, specific my work here, but these are the fields. So currently, the higher order phases I am working on. So these are the, but you can, if you want to look at my publication list, you can go to this link and have a look at the papers. So at the end, thank you for your attention and patience. So I end here. So let us discuss.
Thank you so much, Arijit. Actually, you gave a talk on a very specialized topic, but that's a very nice presentation. And you touched upon many important things that most of us, like students, and
Hmm.
also sometimes us, have difficulty in understanding, like chart number and all those, Majoran and all those stuffs. So I think we have some questions. Dr. Saurabh Haldar from Maths Department. So can you just look over the question answer session?
Yeah, sure. Mhm. No, the answer is absolutely no. So, so the so getting this gapless spectrum doesn't mean that the system is topological. Okay. So the thing is that you have to look at the bulk bands of this system. So the bulk states, the bulk block state has to satisfy some topological invariant depending on the symmetry of the problem. Okay. So like graphene also shows the massless Dirac spectrum into, but it is not a topological insulator because the bulk is gapless in case of graphene, and also there is not. I mean, if you calculate the invariant, so for the gapless system, it will come out to be zero. So getting linear spectrum doesn't mean that you have topology in the system. Sure. Yeah. So Cooper pairs actually is a two electron bound state that carry a supercurrent in a superconductor. So this Cooper pair actually arises, or so the basic, the previous speaker also mentioned that the formation of Cooper pairs, the microscopic theory is called the BCS theory for a conventional superconductors. So, so it appears due to the, so suppose if you have a system where you have electron phonon coupling, so now if one electron comes, so one electron can have a attractive interaction with another electron if they come due to the lattice vibration or the electron phonon interaction in the system. So one can actually show that there is a time scale within which this attractive interaction dominates. So that means, so if you have attractive interaction, then we know from quantum mechanics that you can have a bound state. So this two electron bound state due to the effective attractive interaction forms a Cooper pair. So for a reference, I can suggest that the book by Tinkham, Theory of Superconductivity by Tinkham. Mhm. So in the H-mode, you have charge degree of freedom and spin degree of freedom both. So I have shown that the electron has right moving electron has a down spin. So so spin momentum is actually the locked. Okay, here. So in these edge modes. So now the question is that here, so if you define the charge current like the current due to the upspin plus current due to the downspin, and spin current like current due to the upspin minus current up due to the downspin, then from this picture you can see that effectively what will happen that as the upspin and downspin propagate in opposite direction because of their direction of motion. This is the charge. Okay, so I up and will be of the order of I up will be exactly equal to minus I down. So in that sense, the charge current will be 0, but this spin current will be finite, pure. But the charge and spin both are there. It doesn't that it disappears. But the current due to the upspin and downspin will be opposite. But both degree of freedom is here. Only in the bulk, okay, bulk is gapped, definitely. Yeah, if I understand the question in this way, then this is the answer. Yeah, sure. I am writing.
Yeah, you can just tell us. You can just write.
A theory of superconductivity by. I am writing.
Okay. Income.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Should I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, in the case of the question about Professor Somnath Jalal, in the case of ESR spectroscopy, we know that the orbital angular momentum we choose the material in such a way that the orbital angular momentum cancels each other and only the spin angular momentum remains. Is this does this has any correspondence with the questions about Somnath Jalal, sir? I mean, how the charges current is not present, but the spin current is there.
No. As I say, that it's not that the charge is not present. Charge is present because you have a right moving electron which is coupled to. So right moving electron can have only downspin, let's say, or the left moving electron can have only upspin. Your spin and momentum are locked. Okay, at the edges. The charge degree of freedom is there.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Halder, and thank you, Dr. Shaha, for this nice presentation and also this interacting question and answer session. So thanks for finding time for us.
You're welcome.
And then I hope that if we need you again for some other talk,
Sure.
you will again listen to us and come.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for hosting me, Satyam.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so now we will move to our next talk. So the two keynote speeches we had today, we already have today. Now we have some two short presentations. So the first short presentation will be given by Mr. Anupam Shaha. So Anupam is a student of our college. He did his BSc from APC College. I think there are many students from APC College today here. And then his master's he did from Adamas University. And after that, he started working as a junior research fellow under a DST ACRV scheme in our college for almost 7 months by now. So he will be talking on Fermi level fluctuation, magnetization, Zeeman splitting during quantum oscillation in nodal line semimetals. So Anupam,
Yes, sir.
you can take over the session and then deliver your thought. So
Okay,
stage
sir.
is
I'm
yours.
presenting my slide. Sir, is my slides are visible for all?
Yeah, it's visible.
I'm Anupam Shaha. I'm working ZRF in DST ACRB project under the supervision of Dr. Sattwi Kaur. First, I want to say thank you to the organizer of the international webinar to give me the opportunity to present my short presentation at this topic, the Fermi level fluctuation, magnetization, and Zeeman splitting during quantum oscillation in nodal line semimetals. So those are the following are the topic content of my topics. I go through this by slides. So first I talk about according to electronic band theory, we classified the materials. For metal, the conduction and valence band, the gaps are zero and they are overlapped. For insulator and semiconductor, the gaps are larger and smaller. In semi-metal, some wave vector, discrete wave vectors, their energy gap is zero. And so it is also important when the crossing are both the crossing are linear and at the point of their connection, so there is a effective mass is going to be zero and there is a high mobility to the particle. So going to the crossing linear crossing case, we going to the Dirac equation, which is a relativistic case. I am not rather than going to the Schrodinger equation. So here it is a Hamiltonian for massless Dirac equation, typically for graphene. So here it produces two contact, and it is called the Dirac point. And due to the degeneracy at this point, it makes the dub. It is a semi-metal. It is a 2D picture. It is a 2D discussion. If we go specialize in 3 dimension, then we go to the Hamiltonian resembles as this equation, and in this equation, the Weyl fermions. It is those are the Weyl points connection, and as it goes the Weyl fermion, those are propagating as parallel, anti-parallel to their spin, and for their chirality, and after without Dirac equation and Weyl fermion, there is also exist a non-zero gap for nodal line semi-metal system. In nodal line semi-metal system, the conduction band and valence band touches and they makes a line and a closed path. And it is also observed in some materials like JEDAR, SIS, PBTIA2, and other than the this is the nodal line semi-metal system, and the nodal line semi-metal system, the linear crossing at this point. So at this point, as you can see, so they makes like this, and the connection is closed in a loop, and then it is make a nodal ring, as you can see here mentioned in this pictorial representation. So the nodal ring or loops appear when symmetry constraint allow band crossing with linear dispersion and along lines in Brillouin zone. So one cannot just vanish the nodal line for some deformation of the systems. It can be big or less, but it cannot be vanished, and this is called, and that's why it is a topological robust nature. And also there is some mathematical tricks, as my early speaker Arijit sir also said about all those things. So I'm just going through this as a mathematical form So Berry connection, Berry curvature, and Berry phase. So just putting an electronic path on the nodal line, some position. So one can calculate the Berry phases and also from the sum of the Berry connections curvature, one can also get the Chern number. So the Berry phase, if the Berry phase is non-zero, then it is called the system have a non-trivial topology, and if the Berry phase is equal to 0, then it is have a non-topological nature. And also the Chern number is defined in not zero, then it is a local order or non-local order parameters is defined. So the quantum oscillation can measure the from the quantum oscillation of those system, one can also measure the Berry phase easily. So that's why we are going to the quantum oscillation of such of the systems, and we are going to our systems. So here is a brief introduction to quantum oscillation. So what happens when electron in a magnetic field? The electron goes the electronic cyclotron motion in semi-classical treatment. If we go to the momentum space and going to discuss about the what is happening in momentum space, then there come to Landau quantization. I am not talking about all those mathematical expression as those are mentioned in the slides. I am just talk about what happens physically. So for in absence of magnetic field, the electron states are uniformly spaced and distributed, and they are equally spaced by the value 2 pi by L. So for this case, it is here the absence of magnetic field, but when we switch on the magnetic field, then the electronic states are coalesces, and from the square structure they are rearranges in a circle, and those are labeled as a Landau level. For this for first I say that for this first circle here it is a n equal to 0, and after that is a n equal to 1 2 3 and higher for order, and here it is also. Then what is happen for switch on the magnetic field, or square states are just coalesces and they are formed like a circle and it is indices as a Landau tube. In mathematical form we can also define as a as you can see the laser pointer, that E equal to n plus half h cross omega. It is a Hamiltonian, it is the energy for the well-known harmonic oscillator, and you can also it is equal to the, for the case here it is for absence of magnetic field, it is E equal to h cut k square kx square plus ky square, not for kz. So if we include the kz form, that is a third direction forms, and what is happened, it is just shifted a height and it is formed like this Landau tubes, and those are called the Landau tubes also. So now I discuss about the quantum oscillation using the Onsager relation. That the level of for some energy, the energy must be equal to the extremal surface of the orbital. So from this I can say that it is here it is a one tube and Landau tube, and for some height kz, the energy is E function of kz. Now here if the tube I just shell in a E and E plus dE energy shell, then here there is a no energy which is equal to the extremal orbit. So then the same construction is done for the third picture, and here we see that there is a energy E which is equal to the extremal orbit, and for this there is a peak in density state. You can see this straight line. So in and then it is false like a one-dimensional density of states, as you can see the typically plot of the density of states. This plot is for the fix the magnetic field and just vary the energy expression. You can typically get this density of state plot for say for each Landau level. So here is also mentioned is that. So it is our theoretical model. It is a Hamiltonian for where it is a nodal line semi-metal system Hamiltonian with time reversal and space inversion symmetries are there, and it is the 2 by 2 matrix. As you can see, the sigma are the Pauli matrices for degree for spin degrees of freedom, and if we diagonalize the Hamiltonian, we get the energy expression, and here is the plus minus sign is indicate the conduction band and valence band. So if we how we can define it is a Hamiltonian, it is a nodal line system, semi-metal system Hamiltonian. If you just put the energy gap is equal to 0, then the locus of the system is that Vpz equal to 0, and also the this term is also equal to 0. So the P perpendicular is basically the px square plus y square. So what we have? We have px square plus py square equal to root over 2mm0 m star. So this is basically the equation of a circle indicates that. So that's why I call there is a system for nodal line semi-metal system. For this timing, we just put on the magnetic field, and due to this presence of magnetic field, there are some mathematical calculation. Yes, sir.
You have 5 more minutes.
Okay, there have to be done, and you can see these Landau states and the Fermi surfaces as also defined for this corresponding Hamiltonian. So now we just put a Zeeman term. We want to study how the system will behave when we put the Zeeman term. Zeeman term nothing but the number and is a half z mu b. And after previous calculation, we also define those equation. And here is a Hamilton is a 4x4 matrix, and where the sigma and tau are the define the spin and orbital degrees of freedom. And this is a typical picture, and it is a picture of this Zeeman term. So now we go to the nodal line semi-metal system and quantum oscillation. So what happened in this case is mentioned in the picture in this paper. So in this paper, there is calculating the how to discover the quantum oscillation. So it is just put the extremal orbit, and then he just put the for how the chemical potential energy. So you can define this perpendicular for Landau levels, and also for you can calculate the Landau Venn diagram. These same things also done for this paper, S-core paper also. For in this case, there is a periodic nature in the magnetic field. So you can also go to the picture. I'm just showing how our work is. So our work is how the Fermi level fluctuate in our system. So it is we get this figure from this expression from all the calculation. We are just going to thermodynamical point of views and also calculate in zero temperature analysis. So as you can see, the Fermi level fluctuation for low the magnetic field value, it is dominates, and for it is reduces when the magnetic field value is less, and it is periodically. So we just study the magnetization, how the magnetization is work in our nodal line semi-metal system. As you can see, the amplitude of the quantum oscillation is more reduces when the magnetic field is reduces, as all the expression are calculated from thermodynamics point of view, and one can also calculate these values also. And then we going to the effective mass variation in our nodal line semi-metal system. As you see in the first in the expression of energy, there is a plus minus term, and also there is a plus minus term due to Zeeman term. So there is a if the effective mass is nearly equal to m, then there we have a condition for pz equal to 0. Then we have putting n equal to 0. Then the Zeeman term is the Zeeman term contribution is large. So if we just large, and if we n equal to 5 or 10 higher level indices, then there is a contribution is reduces. But if the effective mass is reduces, then the contribution is also large. As you can see, if it is for the pz equal to 0 situation, but if the pz equal not equal to 0, then also there is m0 as a non-zero value. Then those are also considered, and those values are we are numerically calculated and also plotted in this case. So first of all, the MR is the ratio of the effective mass and electronic mass. As you can see, for here we take the z equal to 2 values as a z factor, and in the bottom case we are just put the effective mass ratio is just 0.025 as mentioned in this paper. So what we observe here is that the dashed line is due to the Zeeman term. So for this energy expression, there is also energy variation in the spectrum. As you can see, we get in the energy expression the plus minus b term. So there is also a splitting. So in the density of state in our nodal line system, we get this picture. There is a two variation for the effective mass is effective mass, the ratio of the effective mass and electronic mass is nearly equal to unit. Then we cannot observe or distinguish the peaks of the density of state. But if we reduces the ratio, then we can discernible the peaks. So here you can see that for without Zeeman effect, it is the peaks for which is shown as a black color. And then if we just introduce Zementum, then we have this part is just split in two parts, and we can differentiate this. So this our work in summary, I am just also saying all this. So just in summary, I want to say that in our future, I would like to say that the nodal line symmetrical system for perpendicular nodal plane just report any topology, just does not report any topological oscillations. So we are just planning for the magnetic field which is acting on nodal plane, and because we can just examine the effort for the effective mass G variation and also Fermi level fluctuation for topological magnetic oscillation occurring, all of this. So this work is funded or they are also supported by the DST ACRP project, and I am also thanks to Dr. Sattoikar who is giving me the opportunity to work with him at this project. So thank you, and you have any questions, so please ask me. And also thank you for your kind attention also.
Thank you so much, Anupam.
Yeah,
That was a good presentation, but I would prefer you to spend more time with your results rather than the elaborate introduction.
Yes, sir.
So the time is very short.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if there is any question, then we can have.
Hi, Anupam.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So, can you tell me that what is the reason behind the oscillation in your density of state?
Yes, sir. Sir, the quantum oscillation is a reason for this is that I can say this. Quantum is a reason for this that we have Landau tubes like that, and we have Landau levels and their corresponding cross-sectional area, as we can see in Onsager relation. Yeah, and we are also note that the labels are also H cross omega c, so there is a B term. So when we changes the magnetic field, the Landau level cross sectional area also changes, and it successively crosses the Fermi surface. So for this, we all know that at zero temperature, at the Fermi surface we have a stress, electronic stress, but out of the Fermi surface there is no stress. So for this, there is a electronic, there is a extremal orbital orbital cross-sectional area, then for this case we have a large number of electron states, and thus we have a peak. So if it is a periodically occurs, so then we have some as you can see the density of state peak. So for some when the Landau level cross-sectional area crosses the Fermi surface, then we have a peak, and for this we have a quantum oscillation behavior.
Okay. So in your case,
Yes,
can I show? Can you
Yes,
show
sir.
me?
This picture, sir?
No. So in which gauge you are working?
In this paper, as you can see, S-score paper, there is showing the quantum oscillation and nodal line semi-metals. And we are just working on Fermi level fluctuation in our nodal line semi-metal system. Here is also there is a change in number, and also we are chemical potential versus 1 by B, the periodic nature we can also study. And in
So
this
you
paper,
are starting from the while. Okay, so can we start?
Yes, sir, yes.
So should we start from around the while Hamiltonian and choose a magnetic field? So
Sir, we are working on a nodal line semi-metal system. As you
yes,
can
so you have
see,
a
it is
loop. You have a loop.
Please say again.
So then you will have a nodal line. You will have a loop. At each point, you have the Dirac.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it is just a crossing, and then it is going to the closed loop. So it is called
sure.
nodal ring also. Nodal ring shape.
Oh, achha. This is a starting Hamiltonian. The
Yes, sir.
continuum model.
You can also see from this pictorial representation, as you can see, this is the point. So, and in while fermion, this is the 2 points, while points, but in a nodal ring case, there is a, in this picture also seen, it is the crossing at this point. And if you just close this path as like this, as you can see, there is a nodal ring also. So for the conduction and valence band, the touches are just like this closed path. So thus it is called nodal ring.
So you are calculating the so for the entire system, not around the ring, I guess, because your starting Hamiltonian has the quadratic spectrum, and you have chosen Landau gauge.
Yes, sir. We are just choosing the Landau gauge, asymmetric Landau gauge.
So from this oscillation, I mean, can I say anything about the contribution due to the nodal ring? Because All contribution is coming from the entire bulk.
Actually, Arijit, if you consider just a 3D electron gas, then if you keep on changing the magnetic field, you will see that pattern of the density of states that
Sure.
will keep on repeating. So that is the oscillation, quantum oscillations when you see it in the electron gas system.
So you are trying to see this for this 3D system, like H0. If I think about that, this H0 is the typical continuum model for you.
Yeah, and then he put the magnetic field first along first perpendicular to the nodal plane, and then along the nodal plane.
Okay.
And then when he does that, that Landau quantization occurs, so the spectra changes. So basically, and then from there you can see the
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so if there is no more question, then we can just go to the last talk of the day. Thank you, Anupam.
Thank you, sir.
So the last talk, the last short presentation, the speaker's name is Dr. Pompa Pal Goswami. Dr. Goswami did her BSc in physics from BB College, Asansol, and then her MSc in physics, pure physics from Jadavpur University, and thereafter she did her PhD from SN Bose National Center for Basic Sciences. He got his PhD degree in 2015, and right now she works as an assistant teacher and also a student in the B.Ed department at Vijay Krishna Girls College, Howrah. So today's topic of her presentation is preparation and characterization of particles for industrial and medical applications. So Dr. Goswami, hope you are here.
Yes, sir, I am here.
Yeah, so if you can just now start your presentation.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Let me share my screen. Today, the topic of my presentation is preparation and characterization of magnetic nanoparticles for industrial and medical applications. So this is my plan of presentation. And so what is a nanoparticle? A nanoparticle is a small particle that ranges between 1 to 100 nanometer in size. Nanoparticle can exhibit significantly different physical and chemical properties to their larger material counterparts. Most nanoparticles are made up of only few angstrom, and magnetic nanoparticles are a class of nanoparticles that can be manipulated using magnetic fields. Such particles commonly consist of two components, a magnetic material like nickel, cobalt, iron, and a chemical component that has functionality. In my system, rather in our system, we have chosen nickel and iron as magnetic component, and chromium, which is chromium and manganese as a non-magnetic component. Manganese is non-magnetic in nature, and chromium is anti-ferromagnetic in nature. So we have extended our work to make thin films of these systems. Like we have already worked with NIMN and NIFECR alloys, and we have found huge applications of these systems. So we have extended our research to make thin films of this alloy system, because these 3G transition metal alloys like these systems are of great importance due to a variety of their physical properties and consequent applications. These are very prospective materials for use in nuclear fusion reactors due to high corrosion resistance and potentially small radiating swelling. This can also be used as buffer layer in high density magnetic storage devices. So we can say that these systems, the systems with nickel nanoparticles are of great importance today, and for many applications like medical, environment applications, and fundamental issue, and to know fundamental physics as well as in industry applications. So how we have made how can we make these thin films? There are different techniques or different methods by which we can prepare thin films and magnetic thin films. These methods are like chemical vapor deposition, thermal deposition, vacuum thermal evaporation, molecular beam epitaxy evaporation. But we have chosen that certain advantages on this system, on this technique. What are these advantages? We can find the flexibility and of wavelength and power density. The pressure range can be controlled from 10 to the power minus 7 millibar to 1 millibar. We can control the growth rate of deposition. We can use different materials for deposition one by one, and any materials can be produced by using different target materials. So uh, this is the advantages of PLT technique. And after preparing, we can we have to characterize it. So how we can characterize it. First of all, I want to say that these alloy systems were prepared by arc melting process under argon atmosphere. After preparing these alloy systems, we have to make thin films of this system. So the nanocrystalline of these particles like NiMn and NiFeCr particles can be embedded in a matrix using pulse laser deposition technique. So we have to choose a substrate which can be diamagnetic in nature, silicon or sapphire, whatever substrate we can use, and the experiment should be done under a high vacuum environment, that is 10 to the power minus 7 torr. And the substrate temperature will be kept around 600 degrees Celsius during the growth process of nickel iron on the matrix. The energy density and the repetition rate of the laser beam should be used 2 joule per centimeter square and 10 hertz respectively. So after preparation of these thin films, we have to characterize it by different instruments like MPMS, BSM, ACM, EDEX, XRD, and STMZ. So what can we do with these instruments? Like magnetization measurements can be performed using MPMS quantum designs with magnetometer operating in the RSO mode. The size distribution of NiFeCr particles and NiMn particles and the crystalline quality of both the matrix and the magnetic particles will be investigated by cross-sectional high-resolution scanning transmission electron microscope with the atomic number contrast, because as we have different atoms like NiFeCr, so we have to know which atom is where. So we can use STMZ instrument. The microstructure of the films will be characterized by the X-ray diffraction technique. So what we can get the diffraction analysis we can have the XRD pattern to determine the crystallographic structure of the material, and by using EDEX system we can microanalyze the chemical components of the systems we have prepared. So magnetic characterization can be done by vibrating sample magnetometer and also the screen magnetometer and also the PPMS system. So this is the phase diagram. Already I have done on NiMn system. It's the phase diagram shows the changing the concentration of manganese from 15 to 37%. We can see the phase change of magnetization. Like for the concentration of 15 Mn percent, we found two different magnetic phases like ferromagnetic and ferrospin glass. So we can see that magnetic phase diagram of disordered alloy system shows different magnetic phases like ferromagnetic, ferrospin glass, conventional spin glass, paramagnetic, and antiferromagnetic regions. So we have done another. We have chosen another system to experiment, and which is NiFeCr alloys. So already experiment has been done on alloy system. So our next target is to do to prepare thin films on this system and change and check the difference of phases of both the systems as like their bulk counterparts. So this is the XRD we have done to know the crystallographic phase. So this the peak shows that this is the peak shows this is FCC in structure, and there is no double phase. This is the single phase FCC structure. The lattice parameter we have calculated, which is around 3.54 angstrom. Since the addition of small amount of non-magnetic substance, here we have used chromium, changes the magnetic phases drastically. So we have to know which component is in what percent. So we have used EDEX technique to know the chemical component of the elements accurately and found it satisfactorily. This is the composition diagram of the ternary alloy at 10K. So what it says? It says that this is the composition diagram at 10K. So at 10K, which material is paramagnet, which material is ferromagnet, which is antiferromagnet or ferrospin glass, we can see this from this picture only. Also, there is a straight line which represents both zero line magnetorestriction and Hall conductivity lines, which theoretically predicted from the speed band model. While the other line with considerable curvature is the experimentally observed line at 10K. It lies much below the theoretical line. So this would be negative for all the ferromagnetic samples. And the ferromagnetic increases with the increasing chromium concentration. So it has been noticed that with increasing chromium concentration and decreasing iron concentration, the system moves towards the antiferromagnetic region from ferromagnetism. So this is very useful. I have told already. We have done experiment on the. We have started experiment on doing experiment on this. And there are huge applications of these thin films of both nickel manganese and nickel iron chromium alloys. So these can be categorized like fundamental, industrial, and biomedical. So to know the fundamental physics as well as magnetization, this system is very much useful, like ferromagnetic, ferrospin glass, conventional spin glass, paramagnetism, and antiferromagnetism regions in these two systems, like NIM and NiFeCr system. So quite naturally, they are very interesting to know the basic physics and magnetism. If we control the size and shrink it to nanoscale region, we found drastic change in the basic properties of magnetism. There are industrial applications too, like this can be used as low cost, environment friendly data storage device, magnetic recording media, magnetic refrigeration, and magnetic sensors to measure very small amount of current. Using PLD technique, that is pulse laser deposition technique, the size of these nanoparticles can be shrink even more smaller to get our demand fulfilled. Biomedical, to say about biomedical applications of nanoparticles, there are biomedical applications of these systems are tremendous. They can be classified into two categories, like inside and outside the body, and can be used in diagnostic and drug delivery systems. So we can conclude that if we shrink the thickness of the thin films, or even we compare their property with their bulk counterpart, we can find the great difference in their magnetic property as well as in daily life use. It can be observed that even smaller addition of a smaller amount of chromium to this system, and even a smaller amount of addition of manganese to the system with the system of nickel, the phases of the system can be changed drastically, and which also reduces the corrosion property. These films can be used as the buffer layers of spin valves and can be used in biomedical application like surgical tools, communicating pipelines, position detectors, current measurements devices, etc. So these are the references I have used. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Goswami, for a nice presentation. At least for your presentation, we get at least one single talk from the experiment side, because most of the previous talks were on theory. So I'll just see whether if there is any question. Yeah, there is one question. Dr. Somnath Jalal has asked, what is spin glass? And what is the quantity we measure to say that the sample is in spin glass state?
Spin glass is like one type of randomness. Like we use glass. Glass means very much random. The particles are very random. Here, spin glass means spins are randomly oriented, and we can change the state from spin glass to in a certain order state. We can find a temperature. Below this temperature, the spins are wholly disordered. I think we cannot even manage the spins with the application of the magnetic field and whatever we can instrument we can use. So spin glass is a magnetic property. Below spin glass temperature, that is freezing temperature, we cannot control the spins even with the application of a higher magnetic field.
Yeah, but it also had a second part, that what is the quantity we measure to say that the sample is in spin glass state?
We have to measure the magnetization. That means magnetization, the AC susceptibility also changes in different way. Unlike ferromagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, the AC susceptibility of ferromagnetic, spin glass is different from that of the others. So AC susceptibility we can use.
Okay. Thank you so much. So, is there any other questions? Okay, so if there is no other question, then I will again thank the speaker, Dr. Goswami, for coming here and giving her talk. So thank you so much. And so that was the last talk of today. So we will everybody for your active participation and asking questions, and then being patient, and then listening to the talks. So just to remind that this is not over, we have another day. So we will be back at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and the joining link will be given to you again via email. So thank you so much. We'll just formally close the session here now. Thanks again. So you all can now leave the session whenever you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Satyavita.
Thank you, Somnath.
It was a very nice session.
Yeah, so waiting for tomorrow's session.
Okay.
With your all
Bye.
big talks.